Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to another healing moment. I trust you had a good week. I trust you had a good day. Even if you didn't, I hope that your stay with us will be a good one. As you can see from my background, the month of April, we've dedicated it to our young people or the adolescents, looking at the good and the bad of peer pressure. And joining me today is our medical expert, Dr. Corinthia Dupree. And I see from those of us who are on Zoom, we have an extra special guest. And all of you are special, but we have some extra special guests. So thank you so much for being with us. And as we go into our chat or discussion, you are free to join us. You are free to ask your questions. You're free to make your comments. You're free to share experiences on what adolescence and youth and peer pressure was like for you. And if we have any youth or any children with us, you are more than welcome to share with us as well. But before we get into our spiritual aspect, let's just bow our heads for prayer, and then we'll go into our spiritual nugget for the evening. Bow your heads with me. Kind Father, we thank you for being with us throughout the day, and we thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and all of your wisdom with us. And as we are about to go into this program, be with us, guide our thoughts, guide our words, and at the end, may we see a different side of peer pressure, as well as determined to use what we have learned to help others and to be drawn closer to you. For Christ's sake, amen. So our thought, our spiritual thought, our nugget for this evening comes from the book of Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 22. And it's taken from, and I want to read it from the Contemporary English Version, which says, "Run from temptations that capture young people. Always do the right thing." And is that possible? Well, we don't know. But it continues. "Be faithful and easy to get along with. Worship with people whose hearts are pure." Now, you know, and it continues to say, it can be easy to get caught up in peer pressure. When you see your friends doing things, making sometimes bad decisions, it can be really hard for the young person. And obviously, you will feel pressured to go along with them and not to make good choices. But today's Bible verse gives us some good advice for times when we meet those situations. It says, run from temptation. For example, if you know that there's going to be a lot of things at an event, a party, stuff like that, that is not what your value system, run from the situation. That it might running from might be the one thing that literally saves your life. So today's truth, run from temptation. Making the right choice might not be always the most popular one, and it might not be easy to do, but in the long run, you'll find that it will be worth so much heartache and it will be better if you didn't have all those bad decisions. But remember that Jesus has always provided a way, and he tells us that if we do not yield to temptation, he finds a way of escape for us to be able to deal with it. So our nugget for this evening, run from temptation, young people. It will be worth it in the long run, and it will deter us and may us not have to do so many things that we don't want to do. But most important, Jesus will be happy. God will be pleased, and it will save us a lot of heartbreak in the long run. Thank you so much, and I trust that you have a good evening as we continue with our program.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I think it's my turn. Last week, I began with a story about my pressure situation where I decided to act foolish so that I wouldn't look too smart. Not a very nice story, but I like stories, so I think I'll begin with another story. In my practice, I hear a lot about pressure. Mostly because I get to interview a number of family members of the deceased individuals. And I usually begin by asking about the medical history of the deceased. And very often I'm told he wasn't sick, he had no problem. But I like to probe a little further. So I ask, was he seeing a doctor for anything? Was he or she taking medication for anything? And then I will hear something very curious. They tell me that the person had only a little pressure. And so today I want to talk about a little pressure, not peer pressure. I want to talk about high blood pressure. So totally different from peer pressure, but I'm going to stick to the medical side of pressure. I have a small PowerPoint that the host will put up for me in a moment. I want to begin by defining pressure. In everyone's mind, they know what pressure is because people talk about being under pressure or too much pressure or not enough pressure or the water pressure being low. Can I get my PowerPoint? Right. So I will begin by saying that, okay, there we go. Right, the definition for pressure in physics, that is, and I used to teach chemistry and physics, is force per unit area. So for example, my weight, let's say I weigh 200 pounds and I am lying on a bed, on a mattress. My weight is spread out over the mattress, so that's not too much pressure. But if I were to lie down on, say, on a 2x4, if it could take my weight, then it would be a lot of pressure on that 2x4. Or if I were to lie down on a very narrow plank, it's possible that the plank would break under my weight. So why didn't the mattress sink, or why didn't it break under my weight? Why didn't the bed break under my weight? Because my weight was spread out over all of it. So I don't know if you've seen people like lying down on a bed of nails. If your weight is spread out over all of those points, then it's very likely that you're going to be able to lie there without much discomfort. However, if you're lying on a single nail, that's different, because there's so much pressure, the nail is going to go through your skin, right? So it's basically how the force is spread over the unit area, and that's the definition we will use in physics or chemistry. Right, next slide. Right, so how do we measure pressure? In physics and chemistry, we use units known as torrs or bars, millibars. If you listen to the hurricane forecast, you will hear that the pressure in the middle of the hurricane or in the eye of the hurricane is so many millibars. But when we're measuring pressure in the human body, we use millimeters of mercury. And you will see in a while the instrument that was originally used to measure blood pressure and why it's called millimeters of mercury. So blood pressure is always expressed as two numbers. And when you go to the doctor, one of the first things that's done is that they measure your blood pressure, and they will tell you that your blood pressure is a certain number over a certain number. The pressure at the top, the number at the top is called the systolic pressure. The number at the bottom is called the diastolic pressure. So what is it a measure of? The heart is pumping out blood to the body with a certain amount of pressure. The pressure that is measured when the heart pumps, because the heart goes boop, boop, it pushes, it relaxes, it contracts, it relaxes, contracts and pushes out blood, relaxes, refills with blood so that it can push out blood. The pressure that is generated by the pushing action is the top number, the systolic, and when the heart relaxes and refills, that's the bottom number. So normal blood pressure is expected to be 120/80, and many of us know that. If it's higher, especially if the top number is 140 or above, then we're talking about high blood pressure. Next slide. So in order to further understand what blood pressure is like and what factors affect blood pressure, we can look at a water hose, for example. The more water there is in the hose, the stronger the pressure of the water coming out of the nozzle. And if we want a stronger force of the water, or if we want it to go further, we will make the nozzle a bit smaller. So you can start seeing the factors that affect blood pressure. Next slide. So we're talking about the volume of the liquid, and blood is mostly liquid. How forcefully the water comes out through the hose, and the diameter of the pipe. So if we make the diameter smaller, the nozzle smaller, we can make the pressure even higher. So the same thing for blood pressure. The blood volume, and the blood volume is affected by how much water we have circulating, how much water we drink, how much salt we have in our bodies, because you know that water follows salt, how much we sweat, how much we drink. The heart itself, the muscle that's pumping the blood, how strong the heart is, whether it can effectively push the blood around, and the size of the blood vessels. Let's go. Right. How do we measure blood pressure? I'm sure you've heard somebody say, my pressure must be up because I have a headache. It's possible that if you have a headache, your pressure will go up. However, the way to measure blood pressure is not to determine whether your head is light or your head is hurting or not. No, 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 that's not it. We measure blood pressure by using an instrument called a sphygmomanometer, right? And in the diagram, you will see the original one. If you went to doctor a long time ago, that's how it was. There is an actual, how do you call it? There's an actual scale with numbers on it, and there's mercury in a tube that goes up. You can see the numbers on it, and the doctor or nurse with a stethoscope will place a stethoscope here, put the band around your arm, inflate it, deflate it, and they listen for particular sounds that we call the cough sounds. They listen for the sounds. So when you start hearing the sound, that's the higher number, and when you stop hearing the sound, then that's the lower number. It requires a bit of training for you to do it using the sphygmomanometer. Let's go to the next one. So the only way to tell if your blood pressure is elevated, not by how you feel, but by measuring it, because hypertension is called the silent killer. And if it was coming with noise and fury, we would all know that it's there. But it is silent. It does its work silently. Next slide. Right, this is the other type of sphygmomanometer. I'm sure you've seen that one, the aneroid one, where the needle goes around a dial, but it's the same principle. And then you have the newer ones that you can buy at pharmacies, and you just attach it and it gives it to you without you having to do any work. So what is the importance of knowing your blood pressure, how to measure your blood pressure, and whether you should know your blood pressure at all? So it's not to be taken lightly. There is no such thing as a little pressure. You might have stage 1 high blood pressure or stage 2. It may be more severe, but pressure is never to be taken lightly. How does it kill you silently? It damages the heart, because you can imagine that if the heart is pumping across increased pressure all the time against increased pressure, the muscles of the heart are going to hypertrophy. And if you've been with us for the last few weeks, you know that hypertrophy is an increase in the size of the cell because of a particular type of injury. So in this case, the heart muscle hypertrophies. And after a time, the heart muscle becomes ineffective because the muscle is so large that its own blood supply is affected. And we can get into that at another time. And it also, the pressure damages the small vessels. The pressure damages the small vessels. You have very tiny vessels at the back of your eye. Those vessels can actually burst and bleed into the back of your eye. Can cause serious damage, can cause serious injury, can cause blindness. They destroy small vessels in the kidneys as well. And in your kidneys, you have multiple small vessels in coils or glomeruli that can filter the blood. If those are damaged, then the filtering mechanism is no longer working. And then the vessels in the brain can also be damaged so that you get hemorrhagic strokes. And hemorrhagic strokes kill. They kill faster than the other type of stroke, which I won't go into at this time. So high blood pressure damages vessels, especially small vessels in the back of the eye, the kidneys, and the brain. And you don't know it is going on until it reaches a crisis phase where there is a stroke, or where the kidneys fail, or the eyes begin to give trouble. The retina detaches, you may get blindness, etc., etc. It is silent. It is not to be taken lightly. It cannot be diagnosed by a headache. It can only be diagnosed by a sphygmomanometer, can only be measured by a sphygmomanometer. So there's no such thing as a little pressure. Do not ignore a little pressure. So next week we can go into, when we're doing our review, we can go into how to manage high blood pressure. So thank you for listening.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dupree. Once again, very informative. You know, we're talking about pressure. And while as youth and adults, high blood pressure may not be very in the forefront of our experience. As we get older, we recognize that it can play a vital part in our lifestyle. And thank you so much for sharing with us. Now, you know, I normally give quotes at the ending of my presentation. I want to do something a little different this evening. I'm going to share a quote with you now, and I'm going to share another quote with you at the end of my presentation. And to the first quote, it says, and this is actually from Oprah Winfrey. She says, only surround yourself with people who will lift you higher. Only surround yourself with people who will lift you higher. Now, for this month, as we said before, our focus has been peer pressure. And in our first episode, when we spoke about peer pressure, I would have spoken about what a peer is. And a peer is some person who is usually in your age group or just around your age group who would have had similar experiences or interests that are similar to yours. And these are persons that you choose to be friends with. And I would have said to you before last that peer influence is not all negative. So actually this week, I'm going to start with the positive, continue with the negative, and then we'll wrap it up talking about what to do when you feel like you're in a pressure cooker. So peer influence isn't all bad. When you think about it, yes, we know that teen years can be tough. Adolescence can be very difficult. And it's because you're figuring out a lot. You're figuring out what to do, what kind of values you want. You would have you would have the value system of your parents, and you're deciding whether you want to carry these on in your life or whether you're embracing them or not. And you know, you're looking at your responsibilities and you're trying to figure out where is your place in the world. You know what is comforting? It is comforting to know that you're not facing these challenges alone, because all over the world, in your school, at your church, in your community, there's another young person your age with the same or similar basic issues. They may have different households, they may come from a different value system, but when we strip away everything, there are some similarities. So you might not really hear a lot about the positive side of peer influence, but I want to share some positive influences that a peer or a peer group can have in your life. First, you have a friendship. No man is an island. We were created as social beings. So therefore, friendship is important in childhood. It is important. It is just and equally as important, and maybe even more important in adolescence and teens as it is in adulthood and so on. So among peers, you build friendship, you build acceptance, you share experiences. And I can say personally that there are friends that I have now that I would have met in my teens, and we have continued to be friends. That is what, and as you get older teens, you'll realize the importance of having these persons in your life to network as you do your career, as you start your family, all of those things. Peers set or can set positive examples. There are many positive examples that a peer can set, from determine how committed you're going to be in school. You know, there are some peers that they're fighting for first place, fighting to get that 100%. That is positive peer influence. There are those who show kindness and loyalty and show examples of what it means to be a kind, a loyal, and a faithful friend. Those are persons that you want to hang on to. Those are persons you want to be your buddy. Even peers can be a role model to you. You know, sometimes we always talk about the fact that we look to older persons to be our role models, which is true, yes, but we can have a peer, a person that is your age, that you really admire and you look up to because of their values, their actions, their behaviors. Peers can also give you feedback and good advice. They can listen and they can give you the feedback that you may want and you may need from their angle. You may be trying to figure out a new task, and they may be looking at it from their vantage point and giving you their vantage point so that they can help you to discuss your issues as well. Peers can help you to make good decisions too. The peer pressure does not always mean that you make bad decisions. They can help you. They can tell you, you know what, if you do this, this may happen. Why not do this? That kind of thing. In socializing, your peer group gives you the opportunity to try out new social skills. They may even give you the confidence when you see someone doing it and you recognize that they can get it done. You build the confidence because you say to yourself, you know what, that is something that I think I can try. Getting to know lots of different people, from different cultures, different homes. Those things help to build us as individuals. They gives you a chance to expand your circle of friends. And remember, teens, remember this. Those persons that you hang out with now as a teenager can very well be those persons that you network with as you become an adult. Those persons can become your lawyer, your doctor, your tutor, the teacher of your children, all of those things as you grow and as you continue and as you develop. Teens also offer encouragement. They encourage you to work hard to get that part that you are trying out for, whatever it is. They listen and they support you when you're upset or when you're in trouble, and they empathize with you when they go through similar situations and similar experiences that you go through. Peers will help you to become involved in new experiences, different clubs, different sporting groups. Your world is far richer when you have a good circle of friends. But we know that sometimes your circle of friends, like any basket of apples, may have a rotten one or rotten ones. And that's where sometimes the pressure is on and the stresses and the stressors come. And the influence switches from positive to negative. You know, sometimes the pressure is not always open. Openly is when they will suggest to you, let's go and steal something from the mall. You go in the mall and you're walking around, you're trying to be so cool, but you're really trying to steal something. It may not be like that, but it may be very closed, very hidden, very subtle by the way they dress and by the way they say to you things that are negative, where they want you to be able to do what they are doing, which is not good. You may feel pressured to conform to fit in because you want so much to be accepted. I say to you, while every one of us at some point in time get involved in some kind of sticky peer pressure situation, at some point in time, we have to make that stand and take that stand and know that it is, or feel that it is very important to be able to do the right thing. Remember, as our text said, always run from the temptation. So I want to say to you, hang with people who feel the same way that you do. Learn to feel comfortable saying no. Make sure that you own up to situations. If a situation seems dangerous, don't hesitate to get help from an adult. And as I wrap up, I leave you with this quote. And it says, don't change so people will like you. Don't change so people will like you. Be yourself, and the real people will love you. Don't change so people will like you. When people truly accept you for who you are, they will love you. Thank you so much for being with us. And next week, before we go, first thing, I'm sure there may be one or two questions. We have a few moments to take a question or two or a comment. But if you don't have the comment or the question, I'll prepare it for next week, because next week is our end of month session where we have our Kahoot, where we will do something a little different. And more importantly, we invite you to invite the young people who you know would be able to come and share with us, or if you want to share with us any experience that you would have had. So at this moment, I'll pause for a few seconds to see if we have any comments or any questions. If not, we'll wrap up, give you a good evening, wish you a good evening, and see you next week. And remember to come next week to, as Dr. Dupuy has in the chat, come prepared. Come prepared with your questions, to hear experiences, and to take part. Most of all, I know everybody likes Kahoot, and to take part in the Kahoot quiz. So if we have no questions, we want to wish you a good evening, or if we have no queries or no comments, we wish you a good evening. Thank you so much for spending a few healing moments with us, and we wish that you have a good evening. Until next week, have another healing moment.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.